is Amy. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I create a floral pattern on this green glass wine bottle. I am going to be using two AMAGIC flat brushes. Flat brushes are actually kind of my favorite brushes, to be honest with you, but I'm using a 12 and a 14. I do list my items down below as affiliate links, so you can purchase through those if you'd like. I'm using two Deerfoot stipplers, a number 8 and a number 10. The paint I'm using is all FolkArt paint, enamels, and multi-surface. I am using School Bus Yellow, Peridot, Yellow Ochre, Thicket, Burnt Umber, Red Violet, Fresh Foliage, and Wicker White. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I'm going to be doing is loading up my larger Deerfoot stippler, which would be the 10, and I'm putting it into some purple right now. I'm going to do a couple little, I don't know if you would say like wisteria or something along that line, but I'm basically just doing like a random little pattern coming out like this with the purple. Then I'll do another one over this direction coming up this way. Now the design I painted on paper, that I always do a sample painting before I do it on the glass. It's not that big of an area, so my pattern that I'm doing here is going to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to then dip into the white, the wicker white, and just come back over this way and just again randomly hitting the design. And I don't want it to be, but I want it to be a little, you know, rough around the edges. I don't want it to be completely smooth, if you get what I'm saying. I don't want it to be, and you can go back over it if you want to, you know, round it out a little bit more or add more color to it, however you want to do it. Back over it, adding again more of the purple to it. And you can also do this, now I'm going to forget the name of it, one of the one-stroke brushes. Alright, so that's good. You know, again, just when you think about it, the more paint you have on your bottle, because you want it to be more opaque, the better off your design's going to be, because of the thicker amount of paint that you have on your design. Okay, so now I'm going to double load my brush with the fresh foliage, the thicket, and then I'm going to dip it a little bit into the brown. And I'm going to create some leaves around this before I paint my flowers, and then I'm going to actually come back and add some more leaves, because I was looking at the design I did and I want the petals to be more on top of the leaves, and I added the petals in after I did the leaves. So now when you're doing these are just some basic wiggle leaves. So, and I'm sorry, my furnace is, or my air conditioning is kicking on. Alright, and I like to kind of rotate sometimes with my colors. So sometimes I have the darker on the outside, the light on the inside, or a little bit of both, which probably sounds strange, but I'm gonna come over here and make it like this so it adds, kind of hooks together. Alright, so then I'm gonna come just add some of these in randomly. They can go over the flower a little bit. I'm actually going to hit this with my heat gun because I want to do the flowers over the top. That's why. And I feel like the paint might come up too much into my design. Now it's not going to be completely dry, so and hopefully I'm getting all this on here because I'm turning my bottle different directions. And I'll come over here, add another one. Now see, on this I can do the light on one side and then do the darker on the other side. That. Do it again here. And it just gives it a different look. It's kind of neat. And you can do the same thing, have the dark on one side, reverse it, have the light on the opposite side. And then I'll just pull the stem down the center, like that. And I might come up here just a smidge, do another set. I'm sorry if I'm getting off the screen. I apologize if that's the case. Hopefully not too much. And this one, we're gonna go like that. Now when you're painting like this, if you feel once you've either given it some dry time or you've you know, hit it with a heat gun or whatnot, if you feel like it needs to have some more coats of paint on it, like one other coat, go ahead and do that, because sometimes that'll make it just a little bit nicer if you have an extra coat of paint on it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with my heat gun. Alright, so I've gone ahead and hit it with the heat gun. I am ready to start with my oh, I don't really want to call it daisy because it's really probably not, since I'm double layering it. So let's just say it's a made up flower. I am loading this with the yellow ochre just to give it some color, since it is just white. Now I'm going to move my plate because I want to make sure I'm actually getting this in the video. Alright, so I'm just taking my flat brush and I'm putting it on the chisel edge sideways and pulling it towards the center. And just keep doing that around your item, or around. Now when you're doing a design like this, you can do it with starting at the top, the side, the bottom, kind of like a clock, but I just kind of like to go around. So whatever works best for you, that's the main thing. And it doesn't have to be, oh, what do I want to say, so precise. You know, make it yours, whatever you're comfortable with, and just go around. You can go over them like I'm doing here. I'm just trying to get it a good coat of paint, but also by doing a second layer, that helps too. And you can make your little petals different lengths if you want. You know, that's again up to you. That gives it a little bit more interest when they're not all the same length. And you have to be careful because sometimes when you're painting over, it will start to raise up. So just so you know, you have to be a little careful with that because sometimes the paint will start to pull up. All right, so I'm going to do another open one down here. And this is what I was talking about. If you're not comfortable with making the design, you can do this as if it's a clock and pull in towards the center. All right, so you just continue around the circle and just keep filling in if you decide to do it this way. And keep in mind too, when you're doing this type of petal, the more pressure you put down on your brush, that will determine the, you know, how big your petal is, and if it's flat, if it's long, if it's, you know, a thicker type petal, you know, however you do it. And you can vary that as you're doing it. That's fine too. All right, so we have the big ones. Now I'm going to get into adding just a few, let's see here where we're going to put them at. But a little bit different than my, and you could do 3 big blooms. Actually on this pattern, I'm not really focusing too much on how many I have on this one. Normally I'm really funny about that, meaning I like to have odd amounts for whatever reason. All right, so in this one it's going to be more of a closed. Now I can go like this to have more of the brown showing, just to kind of give it some contrast, or the yellow I should say. It's not really brown. All right, so that's a partially open, or not partially open, it's actually not open, it's closed. And then over here I'm going to do one that it's going to be like just a partial flower showing, like it's behind the orange, my goodness, excuse me, I'm not really colorblind. Sorry, my furnace is starting up again. All right, so you'll see here, and that kind of almost looks like the closed one, but it's really not going to be. You'll see here shortly that it'll make sense. So let's see. Got the partial there. Let's see where else we might want to do. Maybe even just a partial here. Well, actually it's not going to be a partial, it's going to be a closed. Sorry about that. My dog is down here with me. She has to throw in a bark or two periodically. Now I'm looking at this. Okay, now that's going to be partially open. These are closed. Let's see, I do have my odd amounts right now. I might just leave it at that. Might just leave it right like that. Okay? Alright, so let's go back to adding some more leaves. I'm going to put my brush, I don't know if you can see it, this is the bigger one, the 14, down into the peridot. Let's see what we get when we come onto the glass without putting any other color in it, because it might be too thin. So yeah, I think it's too thin. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of white in it, because what I'm trying to do here is make it look a little bit different than the other ones. like to give it a little bit of a different look. And with the peridot being a more of a metallic, it is going to be more transparent. So you just have to keep that in mind. If you use a metallic, it's not going to be opaque. So just keep that in mind. So on this one, I might come down a little bit like this, just to give it a little bit of a break here. Pull those into that like that. And I am going to come back through and add some more of the what we initially started with too, so just so you know, because I've got to add in some things to attach the leaves to the flower, or the flowers to the stems. And you can come out here and maybe even add a little bit more, or if you don't want to use the metallic, you know, use a different color, different shade. You don't have to use this by any means. Well, you can keep going with it, but I'm going to stop with that part right now and go back into the other greens that we were using. I just wiped my brush off, I didn't clean it. Alright, so I'm going to go back into the fresh foliage. That's what it was called. Alright, so I'm doing 3. I'm just dipping into the burnt umber a little bit, doing some blending strokes. And then I'm going to come in here and like this one here, because it's just partially, you know, it's not open, it's a closed one. I want to add attachments to it, but I wanted to use the color that we were already using for the main leaves. And come back over here, do the same thing. Now you could use a smaller brush. I'm just choosing to limit my brushes so that I'm not using a ton of them, but there you go. And this one is just peeking out from over there, and I'll show you what I'm going to do here in a second. So let's go ahead on some of these and maybe add in some of the thicker leaves. Still the basic one-stroke leaves. So I can come out, you know, like from here, just kind of look and see where you feel like you might need to add a little bit more to. If you're doing a bottle like this, I like to go up the stem of it, up here. So you might want to do that. Since this is one I'm not going to be selling, I'm showing you some basic stuff. I'm not going to go, you know, spend a whole lot of time going up for that. And just bring it over. Take your time and just see if we need anything else coming out here. Kind of like having them covered up a little bit, so it just makes it more natural, not like it's just kind of sticking there by itself, if you get what I mean. Maybe even adding a few more down here. Okay, again, sorry about my air conditioning running. And we'll just pull some stems over here. If you don't like all this, just leave it off. Because I'm a big leaf person, so I could get crazy with the leaves, which I do. So if it's not your thing, then don't do it. Alright, so we're almost done. I appreciate you sticking with me on this. Next thing I'm going to do is take my smaller Deerfoot stippler, the number 8, put the front part of it, because it kind of slants. I don't know if you can see that or not. But put the tip of it in there and put the back side of it, the heel of it, into the burnt umber. And then I'm going to come in here and tap in a center Okay, so I'm tapping it in, just lightly tapping it in. All right, I'm going to come down here to this one, do the same thing, just tap it in. And I always like to tap the excess paint off before I put it on to my design, just so that I don't have too much paint going on there. And then with this little one that's kind of like hiding out down here, I'm going to put a center in it too. Again, if you want to do smaller brushes when you're doing this, feel free to do so. I'm just using what I have, what I'm already using. And then just tapping it in. Then I like to go through, put a little bit of white in these, just tap it in, just very randomly. And there you go. Now if you want, you can add some dots around these centers, or you know, however you want to do it, but they're fine just this way. I think it's very pretty. I hope you like it. If you do, please give me a big thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. Before you leave, if you would also hit that share button that you'll see underneath the video and share this video on your social network with all your family and friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Until the next time, thanks so much for stopping by. Stay safe and healthy, and have a good one.